Today is our second class. Today is our second class concerning what happens after death. Last time we discussed the initial stages after we leave the physical body, that we discover that we have still some kind of body, that the appearance of this body may change depending on at what age of our life we focus on. So we could be at the age that we died, or at the age that we left our body, or at an earlier age. That we can travel instantaneously by just thinking of anyone or any place, we automatically appear there. We can see and hear the physical world, but generally cannot be seen or heard. Although there are people with psychic sensitivities who can, but most people cannot. We can pass through matter, and in general we cannot handle matter in any way. Then we said that the next step is that we are greeted by loved ones or by beings of light or guardian angels who help us go through the review of our lives, in which we review our life. We determine the moments in which we were loving or conscious, the moments in which we were not loving or not conscious. And this doesn't have a sense of guilt or shame. It just has a sense of objectively discovering what we have learned and what we have not learned. Then we began to discuss how the soul then begins to exist in a realm or in a dimension or in a reality which is analogous with the thoughts and the emotions which this soul has developed in its series of lifetimes. In fact, we finished up last time by reading the experience of Walter Cohen, who had died and come back to life and experienced not only the review of his immediately previous life, but also of his past lives. And that after that, we then become aware in general of the contents of our minds. So let us read some excerpts about that. It is not necessary to suppose that all the dead in the intermediate state experience the same phenomena, any more than all the living do in the human world or in dreams. This is from the Tibetan Book of the Dead. The deceased human being becomes the sole spectator of a marvelous panorama of hallucinatory visions. Each seed of thought in his consciousness content comically revives, and he, like a wonder-struck child watching moving pictures cast upon a stream, looks on unaware, unless previously an adept in yoga or in meditation, of the non-reality of what he sees. So the greatest asset that we can take with us is the knowledge that whatever I experience is my creation. This is true here also. This is true when we're in the body. But as you all have experienced, it's much more true in the dream state. And because the after-death state is very similar to the dream state, it's very much true there. At least here in physical reality, matter slows down our imagination. If we're well balanced. We don't think that a rope is a snake, or that a person is a refrigerator, or that I can fly. But in dreams, this can happen very easily. So in the after-death state, my thoughts become my reality. And this is heaven, and this is hell. There's no such place as heaven. There's no such place as hell. They are personal realities which are simply the function of the contents of my mind. If I'm at peace with myself, I create a very heavenly reality. If I'm not at peace with myself, I'm at war with myself, if I'm still full of desires and anger and bitterness, then I will create this reality after death. Let's see what Seth says about this. Even a belief in a time of judgment is a useful framework in many instances. For while there is no punishment meted out in your terms, the individual is then prepared for some kind of spiritual examination and evaluation. Those who understand thoroughly that reality is self-created will have the least difficulty. Those who have learned to understand and operate in the mechanics of the dream state will have the great advantage. A belief in demons is highly disadvantageous after death, as it is during physical existence. A systemized theology of opposites is also detrimental. That is, opposites of good and evil. If you believe, for example, that all good must be balanced by evil, then you bind yourself into a system of reality that is highly limiting and that contains within it the seeds of great torment. In such a system, even good becomes suspect because an equal evil is seen to follow it. The God versus devil, angels versus demons, the gulf between animals and angels, all of these distortions are impediments. So it's what Seth is saying here, that it's important to realize that there is only good. There is only this one creative, conscious power in the universe. And that what we call evil is just a distortion of this energy. There is no, if we believe in evil beings, in demons or devils, we will create them. As I have seen so many people create them in physical life. By believing in these things, we create. Our reality is what we create with our belief system. So generally, it's much better just to believe that all is divine, that all is a creation of the divine, and that there can be, in reality, no evil. There can be ignorance, and ignorance can lead to evil actions, but there can be no evil beings, because no beings are created from some other source. All beings are expressions of the divine. Now let's see what Yorgos Meletis, the theologian, the Greek Orthodox theologian, says about hell and heaven. He says, Saint Gregory of Nyssa explains, do not think of Hades as a place, but rather as a state of bodiless life without precise form. Saint John of Damascus characterizes it as a mental place, not a physical place, not a place where people go, a mental place, precisely because the bodiless soul is formless and therefore is not encased in the body, but rather it is contained in the intellect. As soon as the soul leaves the body, it enters into the so-called intermediate state, which is the same word which the Tibetan Buddhists use, the intermediate, the bardo, intermediate state. This is the period preceding the visiting of the dead and the final judgment. During this period, the soul pre-experiences the good and evil according to its way of living and ending of its life on the earth. So we see that the same message is given by all the religions concerning this after-death state. Now, according to the Tibetan Book of the Dead, they separate this experience into days. That is, they have the same 40-day period in which they pray extensively, intensively for the soul. And it's the same 40-day period in Christianity. And they say that the first 7 days, the soul will be experiencing the result of its positive thought forms. And then, for 7 days, it will be experiencing the results of its negative thought forms. of its negative emotions. Now, of course, these number of days is relative because, as we have said, an advanced soul can go through these processes very quickly and even instantaneously if he's detached. But if it's like us normal people and we're very much attached to our emotions and our feelings and our beliefs, it may take a longer period of time. But the Tibetan Book of the Dead clarifies that all of these visions, all of these realities which we experience are just the creation of our thought processes as our dreams. They are not reality. The only ultimate reality there is the light. And so one is suggested that one focus on the light or focus on a particular form of God or the name of God when one leaves the body. So rather than being focused on what our relatives are doing on the earth and whether anybody came to our funeral or not, or they forgot us completely, or what's happening with our house or with our wife or with our children, or rather than focusing on the realities that we are creating, it's suggested to us that we just focus on the light or on God and move out of this whole level of existence and unite with the highest possible level. Concerning the concept of heaven and hell, we have from Iqbal, from Islam, the following statement. Man creates his own reward and punishment. There is no such thing as heaven and hell. Heaven and hell, asserts Iqbal, are states, not localities. Their descriptions in the Quran are visual representations of an inner fact that is character. So heaven and hell have to do with our character, and they exist in this physical life as they exist when we leave. People are in hell here on the earth, and people are in heaven. Well, few people are in heaven here on the earth. Most people are in hell. I always say this is hell, but you can achieve a state of peace and happiness if you work on it. Also, we remember the words of Christ, according to Luke chapter 17, verse 20. The kingdom of God does not come in such a way as to be seen. No one will say, look, here it is, or there it is, because the kingdom of God is within you. So it's not a place. It's a state of consciousness. Now, Socrates also agrees with this, and he also agrees that what will happen to the soul after this examination will depend on the character. Let's see what he says. On the other hand, if the soul left the body polluted and unpurified, and contaminated with desires unfulfilled and pleasures unsatisfied, it will inevitably be weighed down and was likely to cruise about restlessly among tombs and graves. Okay? So what happens is if this spirit, this soul which is leaving the body, can't let go of attachments that it has to people, to houses, to things, to experiences, it can very well become entrapped in this astral state in which it doesn't move on to experience the death of the mind and the personality, and so it can't reincarnate. It can't have contact with the earth to satisfy its desires without dying, and so it's trapped. It could be trapped 500 years, 1,000 years in this state, a very attached soul. There are helpers there. There are beings there to help the soul realize its condition and to let go and to continue. But just as here on the physical level one can ignore help, one can ignore help also there.